The era of strategic patience with the North Korean regime has failed. Many years, and it's failed. And frankly, that patience is over.
It's 3:47 a.m. in North Korea, but is its dictator Kim Jong-un awake and listening to this? More importantly, is he watching what happened earlier today? President Trump mincing no words as he and South Korean leader Moon Jae-in appeared together earlier in the Rose Garden. This meeting coming just one day after the U.S. Treasury Department announced new sanctions against a Chinese bank which has reportedly financed North Korea's nuclear warhead development. What will these sanctions do, and just how many options does the U.S. really have? We bring in retired Lieutenant Colonel Ralph Peters. Colonel Peters, up until now, battleships and anti-missile systems have sent that the U.S. has sent to the region have not stopped Kim Jong-un. Will cutting off the financial bloodstream to North Korea have a more successful effect with these sanctions?
No. It will certainly inconvenience the North Koreans, but the Chinese will never crack down sufficiently hard with sanctions to destabilize the North Korean regime. A fundamental misapprehension on our part is that we imagine that China regards North Korea as a problem. China regards North Korea as a valuable ally, if a sometimes annoying one. And the other problem with sanctions is, although, God, I'd love to see them work, that sanctions work to the extent they do, and they sometimes do, in countries where ultimately the leadership is responsible to its citizens. I mean, even the Iranian leadership, even Putin at some point is responsible to their people. Kim Jong-un is not. As long as he can keep his military and security services happy, he can let millions, as his father did, he can let millions of North Koreans starve to death. This is as close to as an intractable problem as I've ever seen in the world stage.
I completely understand President Trump saying we have a lot of options and we're going for it and we've got to smack down the North Koreans. But the South Korean piece of this puzzle seems to be a bit more problematic to find its fit. I mean, I was just looking, 35 miles. That is how close the major city of Seoul in South Korea is to the DMZ, or the demilitarized zone of North Korea. They have to be really careful because that's within nuclear warhead hitting targets, right?
It is. It's even within the range of some conventional munitions. And it's a pretty short drive from the border to Seoul. Seoul is not only a capital politically, it's the financial capital. It is South Korea to a great degree. And that is the single stumbling block to military operations, because if we are compelled to do everything we can to prevent at the last minute development of an ICBM that can deliver a nuclear warhead to the United States, if we are compelled to hit them militarily, the North Korean response is to hit Seoul. And that's why the South Koreans are so on the fence about all this.
Well, what could we do? What, in your mind, with your expertise, would you say is the best way to move forward here?
Well, the best we could hope for would be that the Chinese would somehow tighten the sanctions to the point where there would be a coup d'etat in North Korea. The odds are very, very much against it. I don't want this to happen, Liz, but I fear that in the next few to several years, we will see a military confrontation because we'll have no choice. Not desirable. Okay.
Colonel Peters, let me quickly get you on Russia before we go. You have expertise in Russian behavior, having served as an intelligence officer specializing in the Soviet Union. I'd like your thoughts on today's Wall Street Journal article by Shane Harris that some say comes the closest to revealing a connection between Russian hackers and friends of the Trump campaign. This article by Shane centers around a political operative named Peter W. Smith, who had ties to Trump campaign advisor and former NSA Chief General Michael Flynn. Harris says Smith told him he assembled a team of security experts and a Russian-speaking investigator to search for hacker forums for evidence that someone might have those Hillary Clinton private server emails. And then in the article, the U.S. investigators confirmed to the WSJ that the thread between Smith and Russian hackers was consistent with what they were seeing as well. Russian hackers, quote, discussing how to obtain emails from Mrs. Clinton's server and then transmit them to Flynn via an intermediary. And then the article quotes an independent cybersecurity analyst named Eric York, who was hired by Smith. He told the Journal that Smith said to him, "I'm talking to Michael Flynn about this. If you can find anything on the Hillary emails, let me know." What do you make of this?
Well, first of all, Shane Harris, who I know a bit, is a brilliant reporter, and you can trust his reporting. It's diligent and sound. But what do I make of it? It seems sometimes in this administration that all roads lead to Moscow, and a lot of them take a detour on the way by Mike Flynn. And, I mean, I know, you know, the investigation's ongoing. There's no public proof. I got it. But there's so much smoke. Even if you can't see the flames, there's so much smoke the administration's suffocating on the Russia issue. And by the way, Liz, I know you'll be watching the G20 summit next week.
In Germany.
They're usually pretty state affairs. This one could be very, very lively between not only the tension between Merkel, Macron, and President Trump, but because of that meeting. Watch the meeting between Putin and Trump, because if our president comes out of that meeting like a whipped dog and starts talking about lifting sanctions,
I don't think it may be the case.
I hope not. But he is, as we know, our president has been willing to attack our allies, will not under any circumstances criticize Vladimir Putin. I'm just watching this one, Liz.
I think we all are, and Fox Business will be all over it. Have a lovely holiday weekend, Colonel. Thank you so much. It's great to have you on the show, as always. Ralph Peters.